I think we can jump to the last session for the last panel of the day. Last but not least. And I would like to invite my colleague, Max Strotmann, here to join me on stage. Max,
hello,
hi. Hi. Nice to see you. So Max will be moderating. He will be co-moderating the next session about implementation of data spaces. What are the challenges? What are the opportunities? He will be doing together this with Federico Milani. And Federico is from DG Connect, and we have this nice duo who will be co-moderating and representing different type of work strands, but still aiming to make it a reality, to make it work. Federico, are you there? I don't see you on the screen.
Yes, I'm there.
Yes, hi,
hello,
nice to see you.
you.
I'm fine, and how are you?
Fine, thanks.
Okay, so we hear you.
Luxembourg.
Yes, I know that you're in Luxembourg. It's pity that you cannot join us, but still, it's very nice to have you in the virtual studio. So now I leave you, both of you, enjoy the session. I know 3 ladies, 3 experts are ready to join and share the challenges, also speak about opportunities and share some anecdotes. So the floor is yours, please.
Esther, thanks so much. It's fantastic to be back. Federico, it's cool to see you there. I mean, I'm deeply convinced by what Esther is saying, that it is super nice to be here with you and to have this sort of as a team moderation. But I'm dead sure that the whole audience, all the friends and the community out there will just be missing Esther leaving us for an hour. But she will be back later, we promise. We try to rush up so that there is more space of hers. The whole topic of the event is around data spaces, what we are discussing today. So CEMIC this event is about data spaces. Data spaces are a core theme of EU digital policy as such. And I'm convinced, and I think we are convinced here, what we've seen in the discussions is that data spaces are a core success factor indeed for what we like to call digital made in Europe. Cross-sector and cross-border are key issues, and for this, semantics, of course, are key. And for this, also Federico actually is key. And many of you will know it, and I'm sure that most of you will know it at the end of of the session, why it is. Federico is an old friend and colleague from DG Connect, as Esther was saying. And this team, his team, this unit has a long list of achievements, massive achievements in digital policy across the EU. It's the Open Data Directive, there's the Data Governance Act, there is the Future Data Act. All of these are cornerstones of the EU's digital future. So I'm really super glad to have Federico. I don't see you on the screen, but I'm super happy to have you on board here as a co-moderator of this session. But maybe before we go, as Esther said, there is a fantastic panel of 3 energetic ladies waiting for you. But maybe, Federico, before we go into the panel discussion, could you set us the scene? Could you tell us a little bit what is cooking in your kitchen for the moment in the data spaces and the data policy and innovation unit? And I think there's a lot cooking. Federico.
Yeah, Max, as you are saying, we are working hard in order to implement what we already announced in the data strategy in 2020. So we've done quite a number of initiatives already, one of which is the Data Governance Act, where the European Parliament and the Council has reached an agreement, so it will be soon adopted, and where we are already setting up the basis by defining what is a common European data space, by presenting the new figure of the essential figure of a neutral data intermediary that will allow the sharing of the data in a trusted manner. And then we are also going to do other initiatives. So, for example, we have announced a number of initiatives, and we are going to fund through the Digital Europe program a number of data spaces in strategic sector, where the Commission will want to have a faster build up of these data spaces to improve the sharing of data. On top of it, what we are now working on is the Data Act. The Data Act is a new legal instrument that will look at other aspects of data sharing, especially when we are in business-to-business data, data sharing, where there will be the case where the data is co-generated. So there will be devices that has been sold with sensors and IoT systems that will generate the data, and there will be both the constructor of these devices and the user of the devices that would like to benefit from the use of the data. And we are going to look into aspects so that both of them will be able to benefit from the data. And this is very, very, very broad and very, very quick presentation of what we are doing. But I leave the word to you so that we can have we can hear from our panelists what are the specific aspects that they are working on. Back to you, Max.
Thank you, Federico. Fantastic. I mean, these things make or break Europe's digital future. If I can just put, I don't want to put a lot of burden on you, but I mean, coincidentally, if you manage this, the future will be different. And I'm super intrigued by the screen that is behind you on the wall, because I think this is your secret battle plan to get it all through. So good to see you there. Thanks, Federico. Now, you said we have three eminent panelists here, three experts, three eminent data and interoperability voices, and also three friends from across a multitude of projects driving together forward what Federico has been outlining here. We have if I can try to introduce you, we have a policy maker, we have a semantic tech expert, and have a community manager. And all these things together actually is what Federico needs for success in his endeavors. We have Andrea with us. Ciao, Andrea, good to see you. From the Smart Cities and Communities unit in DG Connect as well. This is sort of a sister unit. Federico, not to you, I say this is our sister unit on interoperability. No, joking. A great partner, this unit, in working on interoperability from the local and regional level and complementing what we are doing at the more national level. She has an incredible energy, driving good policy forward for the good of people and the communities. So bang on what we are discussing here. She's working on the data space for smart communities that I think we have also already heard before today in the event. She has a massive experience, and she's struggling and fighting to integrate complex and diverse data on a local scale with a broad view, but always with both feet in local reality. Then we have Giorgia with us. She's, I just love the work to say it, and I think she personates it as semantic technologist. And looking at her CV, she's moving very elegantly, between research, deep research, policy advice and policy making, and then concrete application. It's like a cat looking for interesting sources to feed. Fantastic to have you with us. Now, what she's busy now here, and I think what she may be telling us, is her work on the public procurement data space that is ongoing, which we see as a prime example of a public administration data space. And she's an expert on full-fledged ontology and on the specific use of the data space. Then we have Esther. Fantastic that you're with us, and you are the community practitioner. What I liked out of your CV is that you said that you have this utopia of a holistic, global, local development powered by informed and courageous people. I think somehow you speak about yourself, but you speak also about your fellow panel members, which is fantastic. Esther powers and courageously powers the Support Center for Data Sharing. And she will bring in the lessons learned from onboarding for the semantics work. How can we make sure that stakeholders from across the board, from across the levels, and then we come back to the two other colleagues on your panel, that all these stakeholders are appropriately, deeply involved. I stop now here. Federico, would you from Luxembourg throw a stone into the debate and kick off the debate maybe with a first question?
Yes, of course. So one of the major objectives of the data space, as mentioned, it is to support the sharing of data between in a trusted manner. But one of the major points that you have first to overcome is to be able to find the data. So one of the major activities of who is going to build the data space is to create a space where data can be found, and the importance and what the data represents can be understood by the data users. So my first question to Giorgia would be, why do we need global semantics if it is quicker or easier, for example, to define them locally?
Well, I think that at least if I look at the experience of the eProcurement works that I've been doing very recently also with other colleagues, I think that the semantics allows you to reason about your data. I tell you one important point here. Especially in the procurement, you said how to find the data. We have a lot of open data. At least in my country, you can find a lot of open data. So public available data for anyone to be reused for any purpose. That's fantastic, okay? But typically, what it happens also in the public administration sector is that they publish open data according to what they have in their internal systems, okay? And they know the meaning of some of the columns, let me say, of these data sets that are open. But probably sometimes they use the same terminology they are used to use in their working activities. But probably they don't think about the possible reusers. So the possible users must be aware of the meaning of the data, because otherwise it's very difficult to understand how to take all this data and compare with them, okay? So first lessons that I learned is that definitely reason about the semantic in the eProcurement world. We have an ontology that is being developed, that is the eProcurement ontology. So reasoning about the semantics, having this common data model actually allowed the data providers to improve what already they provide as open data to their users. Obviously, this also improves, let me say, from a technical perspective, the possibility to make the data comparable. We speak the same language, and so we are able to query the data in the same way if I dealing with the data coming from Italy, or I'm dealing with data coming from Germany or any other member states in Europe. So this is really a very important point, because with one query or one unique query, you can really get information spread across different sources because they speak the same language. So it's really a key role in this.
So, Andrea, what about your experience as working in the Commission, so working at European level on the importance of semantic?
Indeed, I think you mentioned earlier that I'm working with the smart cities and communities, and whatever we may want to do in terms of helping their digital transformation, data, access to data and data sharing is key. And a very particular or peculiar interesting part of this area of smart cities is that they actually benefit from all kinds of data, coming from many different domains. They benefit naturally from the administrative data that the local administrations will have in terms of location, but also persons. But then they benefit from data coming from sensors, from collected through the city and so on. So in that context, there's a lot of data from all kinds of different sources. And so what we're trying to create is this smart communities data space, data sharing environment in a secure manner. And here, of course, semantic interoperability is key. I mean, I've recently come across examples where just to identify who is a city resident differs largely depending on what culture, what city, what country you're talking to. And if we cannot agree on who a resident is or identify what that data set means, that's already a difficult point. So there's every single, there's a lot of rationale to come to some kind of an agreement at a global level, because that will benefit the scaling up of these solutions and the acceleration of this digital transformation of cities across, both for the cities themselves, in order to be able to share solutions and benefit from each other's tools, but also for companies to be able to actually create portable services that can easily be implemented in different cultures. So it's key, and we see it as a huge enabler for basic enabler basically for all kinds of local digital services.
Thanks, Andrea. And then what I wanted to ask to Esther in his experience with the business sector is what we notice here in the Commission, what we notice in my unit is that most of the time semantics often remain something that is an academic exercise sort of, and it's not moved forward to the implementation in the real field. Let's put it in this way. So what is your experience and why, in your opinion, we should also implement semantics in the real businesses, in the real field, especially in data spaces? Thanks, Esther.
Thank you, Federico. Good question and quite a controversial one. And I'm happy that you already mentioned open data, Giorgia. In a way, the open data space, the European open data space, is one of our more mature data spaces, if you want to look at it that way, where we already have stakeholders across European countries and institutions. We often agree on many standards, on metadata language, on the vocabularies we use. We do e-translate the metadata, so European citizens can find data in this data space across all EU languages. And that is, and still we see around open data that the conversation about semantic interoperability often stays a theoretical topic. And we are facing a similar or even graver issue when we now look at the creation of data spaces powered by the markets, by the sectors, because here we have decision makers often in the business role, which makes a lot of sense because it is a business decision. Doesn't always mean that it needs to create money, but it is also a business decision. That's what we need to understand as well. And the business decision makers are often not the ones that really understand fully why semantic interoperability is so useful. And the theoretical approach often doesn't meet the business perspective. So there's a bit of a gap. So the question is, do we need to create a business perspective or maybe even a business case for semantic interoperability? So how can we phrase the benefits around multilingualism, ethical reasons, bias, but also value creation into a language, again, that the business decision makers understand?
Thanks, Esther. Just then a question to Giorgia. Before you were referring to the public procurement data space, and there, how will you convince the people that will build up these data spaces of using standard semantics for these data spaces?
Well, I tell you the truth. I think that at least in the procurement, we have done a pilot with some colleagues also of the DIGIT and the publication office, by the way, on trying to take this data from member states. There was Italy, there was Portugal, and there was Norway at a certain point, which is not a member state, but an EU country. And I think that when we start working on that, they immediately understood the benefit of having a common semantic model and a common way to represent this data, because the data, okay, we have an ontology, we have semantic web standards, also the data, so the instances can be represented using this standard, okay? And one of the benefits they first of all, I think they got is that working with this data and trying to transform the data they have into this common reference data model, they discover some errors in their data, okay? So they discovered that the quality of the data, probably coming also from some errors in their internal systems, can be improved. So definitely, this type of work allows all the data providers to improve data quality, which is fundamental. If we really want to have data spaces, also open data spaces and so on, we really need to provide the data that are of high quality. So it was been mentioned before, the metadata. The metadata is the first step to find the data, for example, in the FAIR principles, let me say. But we really need also to take care of the quality of the data that we provide. And definitely from this pilot, I can say that all the data providers participating in it, they start reasoning about their data, you know, how to improve the data, how to make them better, because then on top of that, you can start analyzing the data. And from the analysis, then you can take decisions in your country, or also with respect to the policies at the European level. So this is absolutely what we need if we want to construct a data-driven society, I think. So really, very huge advantages in terms of data quality. So I strongly encourage all the other member states to participate in this, because definitely Italy, but also Portugal, but I definitely say also Norway, they really benefit from this exercise that we have done.
Thanks a lot, Giorgia. And now, Andrea, when I'm thinking about this smart communities data space, usually I'm thinking of a two-way way of sharing data. So we've got, of course, the municipalities or the local communities that will want to share data with the businesses in order to provide new services, so that businesses will be able to access this data and provide new services to the citizens. But there is also the other part, so where businesses, where government organization or administration will need data from the businesses for example, policy making. So what is your view, and how is this aspect taken into account from the business side?
It's very, very relevant question, because we often hear from cities that indeed much of the data that they would need to make their decisions and manage their assets or resources does not necessarily reside with them. And oftentimes they find it difficult, costly, or just very cumbersome to get access to certain types of data. That is essentially held by utilities or by the private sector active in the city. Now, the same goes for the private sector entities that operate in the city and will have to submit some data based on some negotiation or agreements to the city, but to each city in a different format, in a different way, with different frequency and so on. So the data space will bring some kind of a hopefully win-win situation to both sides. It will allow some agreement on the side of the cities. Okay, what kind of data is it the most relevant? And we will go by use cases that is absolutely necessary for our cities to manage. So we'll gradually grow this data space, starting from the most relevant ones. We've done a workshop recently, actually, and there we've heard, you know, data coming from transport, so mobility companies, or managing short-term rental in a city, and so on. And what kind of data, what frequency, in what model, and what do we mean by that data? What is, you know, the semantics behind? And so then it's easier and more cost efficient for the companies, but also from the city's point of view, they will be able to then say, okay, so all these cities need this kind of data, and this is something that we would all like to have. So there's a different, let's say, discussion situation from the city side to be able to come to some agreements that would also benefit both sides. So we're definitely looking at this, and we have some very good examples already across the EU, but they just need to scale up. So we really hope that the data space governance and agreements within that will enable the scaling up of these solutions.
Thanks, Andrea. And then, Max, when we are talking about semantics at European level, there is an elephant in the room that we always forget, or we do not want to look to it. Is that we all speak a different language. So what about that?
That's very nice of you, Federico, that when you speak about elephants in the room, that you then turn to me. But I overlook that, let's say, and I try to brush it aside with a very nice comment that I see, because there's comments coming in on Slido, and I would like to remind you, please post your comments, and we try to come back to that. But one of them said, Giorgia is a big fighter for open data in Europe. Go, Giorgia. And this came from Gianluigi, an old friend, so good to see you and good to see that you're out there. So the question I think that Federico put on the multilingual nature is something that goes a little bit like one of a red thread through this conference. And I would like to play this to Giorgia and Esther in particular. So what are your reactions to, you think, how much can semantics really be a stepping stone for truly multilingual datasets, or are we exaggerating? Are we speaking of something that we can't really achieve? Giorgia, Esther?
Esther, do you want to go?
Go ahead.
I will speak after you. I will speak after you.
Thank you. Well, I believe without semantic interoperability, we are going to just English. That's my gut feeling. And just English isn't multilingualism, and it isn't in line with the European values. And we pride ourselves with diversity, also in having the different EU languages. And we want to keep this diversity. If it all goes towards English, then we're forgetting about minority languages, and we're losing this core value that we are trying to protect in Europe. So yeah, I'm fully with you. We need semantic operability for that cause, because otherwise, in the future, we will have Alexas and what are the names of the language technology services, and they will only react to English in the future. And I believe that's one of the moments in time where we still can decide to prevent that from happening, let's say. Giorgia, how do you feel about that?
Well, I can bring my experience in this, okay? So, first experience, if I look at the European vocabularies, so published from the publication office, they are all multilingual, okay? So there is this huge effort that has been done there in order to provide control list of labels, let me say, that are multilingual. And that is a very important and strategic knowledge that we have and that we can exploit, and all the member states in Europe can exploit, definitely. The second experience of mine is that in a certain moment of my career, I developed a number of ontologies and controlled vocabularies at the Italian level. And in Italy, we have some other languages, because we have in the border, so we have German and French as well, because there are some cities where these two languages are spoken. And so when we create these controlled vocabularies, there was not only Italian, you know, but we had to try and to think about all the other languages. So some of these vocabularies are also in French, in German, and in English, definitely English in any case, which is a common language understood also by these people. So it's a very strong effort, I would say, because it's not easy to translate resources. But I think that, once again, using this common way to call things can definitely be helpful also for the multilingualism. At least this is my definitely experience. If we look at data.europa.eu, there is a lot of data set, you know, available in all the languages. So, and once again, there is a semantics behind that system. So I think that really this is an important aspect in order also to be inclusive, you know, with the people, with the user, once again, with the people who has to reuse the data.
Yeah, and it also has something to do for me with access to knowledge, empowering the citizens. which ties in to create sovereign and, again, courageous citizens. So, yeah, I agree.
And that's a very good point, if I can jump on this one, because the combination between what the two of you are saying, this rings very well with Vasilios, who was posting in Slido. Vasilios is another old friend from the wider interoperability, no, here from the core interoperability environment, who actually interestingly refers to a statement from Pope Francis that he made. That's what Vasilios says. You never know what Vasilios picks it up. He said, this was a statement on climate change, where he said that it follows that the fragmentation of knowledge and the isolation of bits of information can actually become a form of ignorance unless they are integrated into a broader vision of reality. Very interesting. I never thought that I would quote once the Pope here publicly, but let's say I just quote Vasilios saying something. But what rang out for me is something that you came out of a number of positions before, where you said, and I use now the multilingual, the language, the knowledge, the community aspect, saying how important this is in procurement, for example, but also in cooperation at the local level for smaller companies in particular. And this strikes really a big chord with me, the support to the massive amount of innovative small companies that we have across Europe, but who are struggling to get access to public procurement, for example, to get into local markets in particular. But they have the strength, sorry, I fall about my own passion. They have the strength of the knowledge of the local market. And if you allow me one little side point on the English, Esther, good point. Massive amount of English out there. I'm German by nature, although I come also from a border region. And there in German we say, if something is unclear to me, I say, oh, this sounds Spanish to me. Now, I can't say this because my Spanish boss, Natalia, is here, but it shows to me all the confusion. So the more languages, the more multilingual, the better. And this is also what Horst is posting here. Multilingual is not just a translation, but instead what we need is a semantic coherence between history and use of data in different data cultural domains. That's a very big challenge. Maybe I can use this moment and throw a question to you that I saw from Eileen, was the first one, I think, to post a question. And she says, yes, data input, all of that very important, but how about the ease of contribution? And I think this is what Federico made in the beginning, and the social and the community debate around that. How can semantic help that? And I would like to link that to a question from Peter, who said this is all fine. In an academic context, it's all very fine. But how practically can we do it? And he refers, I think, to a Flemish program supporting that. Who from you would feel ready to kick off the discussion on this one?
I can go ahead if you want.
Yes, please.
Max, I'm listening to you, and at the same time, I also read some of the comments, and perhaps I reflect on a few of those points. So, indeed, I think what if I understood correctly, the discussion is about a very specific project, and I'm sure there's more of those, where, for example, we're trying to demonstrate how the use of citizen-collected data, citizen science data, that citizens would just use or collect through their home individual sensors, could eventually feed into something larger at a neighborhood level, or even a city level. And how can cities make better use of that? And of course, apart from getting that data in a regular time frame, it's also important what form that data comes in. And so that's again where semantics will be important. That we do have some projects actually looking at it, and the whole team working on how citizen science data can contribute to cities and policies. Now, some of you were asking about the ontologies. Do we need really global? I think what we really mean is among the different cities in Europe, at least. And we have some really good examples, like you've already mentioned there, Inspire. But I could also mention some data models that are quite advanced at local level, because cities have been, at quite innovative in the sense that they have this innovation space where they can check and test. And we've had a number of projects validating those data models, data sharing models, which have come up with something called minimal interoperability mechanisms. Now, we were also asking the possibilities for smaller companies, and that's certainly the case if we have the data models in a way that is easy to build solutions on, as I said earlier, to kind of create portable services. So we would have this possibility of really creating a single solution that can easily plug into data from other, for example, cities. And the last thing I just wanted to mention is that when we, what I think will be also really interesting is to see how you were mentioning, of course, different languages, but I also want to mention the different languages of different, essentially, domains. So a public administration will have to essentially manage, in a more integrated and holistic manner their policies, their services. And what will really be important is to bring this kind of data sets from different departments, essentially, of the city or administrations together. And that's a whole other issue of semantics and understanding, what exactly we mean by that data and how to bring those together, create essentially data services, but also even models and virtual models and scenarios. And for example, digital twins that would allow the administrations to better understand the potential impact of their integrated kind of holistic decisions.
Thank you so much, Andrea. Any of the colleagues to jump in right away? Giorgia, Esther, Federico?
About the society, I would like to bring here another example I'm looking at. I'm involved in a project, which is an European project on it's open data, okay? And here what we want to do is to put together data coming from one domain, which is the water domain, and another domain, which is the health domain, okay? Because we don't want, to create data silos between data spaces. We want data spaces to be integrated with each other, by the way. And in this project, we have a co-creation program where we want to involve since the beginning of the project, meaning also since the beginning of the reasoning about the semantics we need to give to this data, anyone interested in this type of data. And currently, we have constructed so far a quite good community formed by citizens, startups, public institutions, associations supporting citizens, and so on. And they were quite interested also in the semantics. And what I can say, at least in my country, there is a strong community of people wanted to reuse data, especially this community, I think also growth during the COVID pandemic, because there is even more awareness in the civil society about the importance of the data, because we are living in these 2 years at least following what data says, okay? At least this is what's happening in my country. So I think there is a more awareness of that. And recently, I have, especially in the procurement, in an e-procurement meeting, I heard some of them saying to the public administrations, try to involve us since the beginning when you have to deal with the data, because then this can improve also data literacy. And here, I would say that is very important to involve the society from a public administration sector perspective, for example, the citizens, because they can understand what we are speaking about. That is fundamental. For example, in COVID pandemic, we have seen this fundamental issue that we didn't understand some of the definitions, okay? That were, by the way, not very coordinated, at least in our country, from regions and central government sometimes. So I would really say that semantic can also be taught, let me say, to citizens and to society that want really to be part of this process of managing this data with the public institutions, with the companies, and so on.
Fantastic, Giorgia. I just love to listen to you. Esther, Federico, anything to add from that? I see that the discussion also goes on very lively on Slido, which I'm very happy about. How to avoid that the data spaces for different domains reinforce the fragmentation. This is exactly what you are putting it, and what I see the passion of fighting against, and the cross-sectoral, the cross-domain aspect that is so essential, actually at all levels, but in particular the local one. And my gut feeling is, and maybe that's also a professional deformation because we come from the public sector, interoperability, the digital government side, but that testing, piloting these things at the ideally local level, in a public sector level, cross-sectoral issues, could help us massively then to engage and to roll it out across various private sector sharing and data access use cases that Federico is pushing so much. Any other comment on that? And I think then also Federico had another question for all of you. But first, any other comments on this conversation?
Well, I think you're... Oh, Federico.
No, go ahead.
All right, I make it brief. I believe what you say, the testing, the idea of sandboxes, and that's great, and it goes well together with involving citizens in datathons, for example. And what we need for that, when we really talk about reuse and not use of data, but using the data in a context where it was not produced or meant for, and this is when we need context. And this is where the semantic interoperability comes in. So from the question you had before, I think from Slido, like how can citizens contribute, and how can semantic interoperability increase that? For me, that is the link. It's context, and it is the feedback and what we can learn from open source, how the community can improve quality of a service, of a data set in that case. Thank you. Federico, to you.
Yeah, to add on that, as we were mentioning before, what the Commission, what we want to do also through the Digital Europe program, so through our funding initiatives, is also to create what we call a data spaces support center that will look at these aspects in order to avoid creation of silos, in order to promote the adoption of common standards of the same way of describing the data between different data spaces, because we feel that it's extremely important that organization users that want to use the data and want to access the data will have the possibility to pick up and get the data from different sectors, because it's there when you've got different type of data used that you've got really innovation coming out and new product and services for everybody, for the society, for the citizens, and also to improve the data economy in Europe. So this is one of the other aspects that it's extremely important for us, and that we hope that also the community and the expert on semantic technologies will be working together with this data spaces support center and contribute to the definition of the architecture and technical requirements for the creation of the data spaces. But the last question that I've got, if we've got still time, Max, is about semantics that will help to ensure trust and transparency. What do we mean? Trust in the sense that we want to know, of course, the user will want to know where the data is coming from and for what use they can, for which purpose they can use the data. A clear example will be, for example, avoiding bias in AI development of products based on AI systems. So, and then there is the transparency again. What can we do through semantics in order to promote and to have more trust and more transparency in the data? So who can answer to that? Esther.
I can kick it off and then hand it over. So for me, what comes to mind is when we talk about data provenance and data lineage, to looking back and forward, then semantics is key. And we can imagine an audit, for example, or we can imagine a case around liability, which is still two things on the top list of the risk pillar for many organizations when I think about sharing data. And here semantics is definitely something that can ensure transparency, trust, and can bring light into the questions of liability, and therefore should be in our, let's say, in our arsenal of arguments when it comes to reducing risks and creating data spaces. That's why I think that semantics is key here.
Giorgia, or I should go ahead as you wish.
Go ahead, yeah.
I was thinking, of course, since I had mentioned earlier these digital twins, that's quite a complex way to manage, different domains in a city or an administration, and there definitely we need to gain the public civil servants need to ensure that there is trust in, how decisions have been made and where the data that was used for those decisions was coming from, and from what context. So I really like the one of the comments in the chat was mentioning, of course, it's not just about language but culture. Or I think one of you mentioned. I wanted to here bring in a very interesting example that we have worked with cities and of course with our colleagues in DG DIGIT to develop something called a European Interoperability Framework for Smart Cities and Communities, and very much benefiting from the original EIF and that the different interoperability layers. But what came out is that apart from integrated governance, there is also a need to explore the role and the importance of cultural interoperability, especially at local level. I think it's very, very relevant to understand what we mean by certain data, what we mean, how to address certain sets of information, how to ensure that decisions made on certain data, those data sets are somehow kept, that reliability and traceability can be ensured. So it is certainly extremely important, and the more we go forward with more, let's say, sophisticated tools and the creation of the data space, this would be a huge, semantics would be a hugely important element to ensure trust in the usage, both from citizens, civil servants, but also the companies.
Yeah, I think that I would like to mention this specific case. I think that semantics is very useful also for the communication, institutional communication, if I think to the public sector, for example. I tell you this story in Italy, that there was a period in which to communicate the vaccination of the people, there was this, game, let me say, that they mentioned about the people vaccinated, but they meant the doses that were given to people, So people fully vaccinated is a number. Doses provided to people is another number. If you play with these numbers, obviously, you do not contribute to create a good relationship with the citizens, okay? If you are very clear on the semantics, what do you mean with vaccinated people? What do you mean with people who received one dose, or how many doses we have done so far? So if you are very clear, people can understand you. And so if people can understand you, the relationship with the government, with the institution is definitely much better. And I would say that this applies to many things. If you manage data and if you communicate what you mean with that data that you use for your working activities, and people can understand them, and here semantic is key, then definitely people can start trust what you are doing. This is what I observed so far in all the projects that I have seen.
Thank you. I think if I...
Esther is back, but you don't see it. She is there and she is grabbing the time. Esther,
yes,
back to you.
Yes. Sorry for interrupting this discussion. I see that the dynamics is there. You still could continue, I have the impression, and the audience also could continue, and they are asking the questions and the suggestions and making comments. It's very interesting, and I'm sure that this discussion will continue in other occasions. Thank you very much, Max. One highlight, one conclusion, what really you would like to stress out?
I loved it. I loved the conversation, and I wouldn't have wanted to cut it off. In the chat, they say, okay, governance, community, all of this is a massive challenge. That's true. That is there. And Federico, his team, the ladies from the panel will do that. Global semantics, empower local action. And one final thing that made me thinking, there's so much talk about smart fridges and smart cars. It's all very nice. But it's really the smart communities that make a difference, and this panel is driving them, and the chat and the colleagues, the friends in the audience are doing it as well. It makes me very feeling well.
Thank you, Max. Federico, you as a co-moderator, one last highlight, one idea you want to stress out.
In order to make a success the data spaces, and in order to make Europe a major player in the data economy, we need the work of everybody, all the community that are interested in sharing data, in working with data, in extracting value for data. And so let's get together and work together in order to achieve this major objective that could shape the future of Europe.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Federico. Thank you, Max. Thank you, our experts, Andrea, Esther, and Giorgia. Very much needed. This discussion will continue. But the time is up. I promise that we will finish around 4. I have my director, Natalia Aristimuño Perez, together with me on stage for the closing, for putting all the dots on the i's and recapping what we'll take out.
Thank you, Esther. First of all, I would like to start thanking the Slovenian Presidency, because they have not only organized this event with us, but they have also put really a highlight on the digitalization and the transformation of the public service. And I think this is very important for all of us. And well, we have seen how important this is throughout the day. But I would like also to thank the teams that you don't see, that are there behind. I can see some of them here in Brussels, but there was also the team in Slovenia. This is the advantages of having online events, is that we can be in different locations. Also, thank you to all the speakers, because this has been a very intense day with really very, very good discussions. And well, I would like also to thank you all of you that are listening. You have been not only listening or watching, you have been also interacting with all of us. And I would like really to thank for that, because we could see, even if we could not see all of you watching at us, which is sometimes very stressing, because we don't know if you are really, out there or not, but we could feel it, because you have been posting questions, comments, suggestions all through the day. So thanks a lot for that. And I know that I would like to call all of you like the fans of semantic or of semic, because I know this is something that is not only today, that you have spent the day behind your screen watching and discussing with us, but it is a daily work that you are doing. You are always contributing with the work that we are doing. We have some examples on the evolution of the core vocabularies. That has been an intense year this year on reshaping them, adapting them to the new needs, because the world is changing. We don't stop in one day. So this needs evolution, and you have been there to support us, and I would like to ask you to continue in the future to support us. We have seen also all your commitment, because you can follow all these changes, for example, in GitHub, where you can see all the proposals that have been put forward and the changes that we have implemented. There have been also work out around DECAT-AP, and there has been Estonia talking about it this morning in one of the parallel sessions on how they have reused it, but there is still work to be done on that, and we are still working on that. So we also count on you. We count on you for many things. So please be ready to support us throughout the year. Now I would like to just not spend the whole evening, I could, about the highlights of today, because it has been really, really very interesting, but just some highlights. First of all, we had very high level speakers with Commissioner, the Minister, also the discussion between Asta and Mario, that I think put really the political importance of the data for the digital transformation, not only for the public administrations, I would say, because we have also seen how the data bring value to the economy. And this is where semantics can play an important role. So that was very important. Something that came out from all these discussions, and I would say throughout the day, is let's do things together. And this we have seen all through the day. Then we had the keynote, Marco, bringing a different perspective and trying to put together the AI and semantics, how semantics can bring some order in the mess that we have around us, which in fact reflects the reality. But it was very interesting also to see how AI can also support the semantics. So we have seen with Marco the two aspects of how AI and semantic can join up to offer better value to the data that we have. And well, I have to say it has been really very insightful with many, many different angles to what we can extract from the data with AI. And then after the keynote, we have 3 parallel sessions. I know you could not follow the 3 parallel sessions at the same time. I tried, but it didn't work. So just to let you know, the sessions have been recorded, so you will be able to watch them later. They will be published in our YouTube channel, so don't hesitate to come back to watch them. They were really very interesting with experts from all around Europe. We were really having the examples of implementation of all the work that has been done. So I would like to say that here we could see that we are not talking only about theory, but we really had concrete examples on how we can benefit of the theoretical work that we are doing. So this, I think it was really, really very important, and it covered the different topics from personal data spaces to text mining solutions, but also the case studies. And so I think that one of the messages there was also the importance of sharing, reusing, and improving, because I think this has been also very key in all the discussions. Then after lunch, we had very interesting points of view, a different look at the work that we are doing. This coming from researchers. So there, well, I think we have seen it was kind of a marathon. I could see they wanted to talk much more, but they had a lot to share. But I think this was the good thing to have these pitch talks that will just raise your awareness of what is being done, and then you can investigate further. You can look further on what they are doing, and perhaps run some new pilot projects. So there are quite some ideas for the future that came from the research. And then just before I joined, there was the afternoon session in a panel where we discussed about the implementation of the data spaces. So we have seen the importance of semantic, but the importance of the data. We have to make usage of that data, bring value with the data that we have. And this is what we have been discussing on how we can make it a reality. It's not always easy. We have seen some of the challenges that we are having with that. But I think it has been really, really very insightful to see the different angles on how we can make the data spaces a reality. So, yeah, I will stop here because if not, I could go till tomorrow. So just to repeat, big thanks to everybody, also you that have been watching. And okay, this year was also an online event. I think we can talk about the benefits of it. There has been quite important audience all around Europe and beyond, probably. Next year we will try to come back. Probably we will come back with an hybrid event, so we can take advantages of both the coffee breaks, the networking that we can have while we are in the same place, but also the advantages of having online events where you have people from all around the places. So really, thanks a lot. Continue following us and continue contributing to the SEMI community. Thanks.
Thank you, Natalia. Thank you, Natalia. And the conference is over. I'm sorry to say it's over. We don't have anything else. What's next? Satisfaction survey will be sent to you, and we need your input. We need to know what you liked, what you didn't like, what speakers, what kind of format you would prefer. Please fill in, share with us what you think is needed for the future. Then recordings, as Natalia mentioned, recordings will be available. They are already, you can rewatch some sessions already. They are on the platform. I saw this before. Also, join the community of practitioners on JoinUp. JoinUp is the platform which we are revamping, which will be even better. It's okay, it will be even better. And we are aiming to foster the communities there. So join us there, follow us there. And also don't forget social media. Twitter, LinkedIn, we are there. Interoperable Europe, yes, we are there. Interoperable EU, please follow us and share, contribute, highlight what are your needs. Not only for semantics, but also Interoperability Academy and other work strands on which we are working. Thank you very much. It was a very interesting day. It was my pleasure. And see you next year.
Collection of facts kept in a dusty folder, or a powerful decision-making tool when digitized and shared. Communication can be the dialogue between two persons, or the exchange of massive data sets between IT systems to make life easier for millions of people. And cooperation can simply be the work of a construction brigade, or the coordinated effort of entire countries to build a better future together. This is what public sector interoperability in Europe stands for. Seamless exchange of information, borderless communication, and smooth cooperation between digitized public administrations for the benefit of businesses and people across the Union. The ISA Square programme of the European Commission has been working to introduce interoperability to the public sector by numerous initiatives, events, free solutions, actions and funding. Today, the ISA Square programme is over, but the work of the European Commission and its partners in administrations across Europe to achieve interoperability continues at full speed. And the stakes are high. Improved interoperability could lead to a reduction in the time citizens spend every year with the administration by 25%. This results into time savings of 24 million hours and monetary savings in the order of 543 million euros per year. And businesses, they could save up to 568 billion euros annually. But it's not only about time and money. Now, more than ever, we have the right tools, knowledge, and expertise to shape a strong, interoperable public sector, built upon our European values and common dream for a true digital Europe. A digital Europe that is inclusive, transparent, fair, and accountable. Our mission is to create a reinforced, interoperable policy that will work for everyone. And our ISA Square programme is now Interoperable Europe, the initiative of the European Commission for a reinforced interoperability policy in Europe.